I mean, again, we're still trying to find our identity. And I think a lot of times we are, I probably said we got our own little islands and we got to make a continent. That's kind of what we got to be able to play together.
Welcome onto the sideline, everybody. Matt Dowell and Jared Parker with you on this Sunday or whenever you're listening to our podcast. Today, we are going to do a little bit of a basketball breakdown for you guys. It's been an eventful week for both Gamecock men's and women's basketball. And what we're going to do on this show today is just kind of break down all 4 games that have been played this week. So 2 for the women and then 2 for the men. And Jared, we will start with the women. But first of all, how you doing? What's up, man?
Good. It's been busy. I mean, we have the high school state championships going on. We're not just here covering USC basketball. We do other stuff. So it's been busy, but doing good. How about you, man?
I'm good. You know, it's a tough time at the holiday season, which I am a big fan of. A lot of sickness going around, though, not with me, but, I was at church today and a lot of people out, and I know that was affecting the Gamecocks today, so we'll get into that in just a little bit. But also a shout out to Dutch Fork and all the other high school football state champions that were crowned champions in what was a very kind of nasty weekend down in Orangeburg with the weather. It's been, gross weather-wise here in the Midlands. So, but congratulations to all the high school football state champions. And Dutch Fork, again, continuing that dynasty. It feels like it might not ever end. And if it's Tom Knotts, I don't think he wants it to end. But Jared, let's start with women's basketball. A big week for South Carolina women's basketball. And we're going to start with this Louisville game that was on Thursday night. And it was part of the ACC-SEC Challenge. The SEC won that 13-3. The Gamecocks adding a win. But Jared, this one... It had the heart palpitations going a little bit. I mean, it was a close call for South Carolina. They had to dig as deep as they have had to do so far this year. South Carolina was up 11 in the third quarter, 50-39, and kind of like the Texas game over Thanksgiving week, that lead started to chip away. You kind of felt like, okay, South Carolina's panicking a little bit, maybe losing the plot. Louisville then goes up 5 in the fourth quarter. It was a 16-point swing in, I think, 10 minutes. And for South Carolina, Jared, I was sitting there like, okay, this is a young group, a group that hasn't played together a lot. How are they going to respond to this? Because I was like, either Louisville is going to start to really go away with it, and that crowd was incredible, and Louisville was playing unbelievably well. So I said either South Carolina is going to lose the plot and this team's just going to have to learn a hard lesson, or they're going to dig deep and have to come back. And Jared, it was the latter. They dug deep. They got out of that hole. Raven Johnson, can we just talk about her for a minute? She performed so unbelievably clutch in those final few minutes. She performed like a veteran. She performed like someone who has won 2 national championships. She found Medina Ocote, and then she called her own number late in that fourth quarter, getting that layup to put them up 78-75. South Carolina able to get out of it. Louisville did have a really good chance, though, and we'll talk about the defense here in a minute, because Louisville was wide open for a 3 that, if they had made that, probably wins them that game. But South Carolina gets a ranked win on their resume. They walk out of Louisville, which was a fantastic environment, with a W. And at this point in the season, Jared, it's all about winning. And that is what South Carolina did. But anyway, my standout was Raven Johnson. I thought she was incredible in the clutch. What stood out to you in that win over Louisville?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because my biggest question in that game is, who are you going to go to? It's early in the season. Like you said, all that matters is getting the win, but it also sets a precedent for the future. And in the back of my head, I'm thinking, you have a very talented roster, but if there's that champion, there's that pro, that future pro that you hope from Raven Johnson. It's, can she take over, be the veteran that she is on that team, and really keep this team calm in a moment like that? Like you said, she called her own number. She doesn't have to do that with her play style, but I think she's someone who they kind of look to be the calming nature in a situation like that. And ultimately, I think it was a really good game for South Carolina.
An important game.
It's an important game for them to have, and it's even better that they want it to have that game where, hey, like you said, they had to dig deep.
Yeah.
It wasn't looking so great for a while there. Like in that fourth quarter, I was really like, wow, it's South Carolina about to drop a second one.
Yeah.
I had those thoughts. And for them to fight back and get a close win like that, like you said, there was that last possession, but they escape with the win. I think, as you said, it might have been one of their most important games so far, and maybe in the non-conference schedule as a whole.
Yeah, and shout out to Louisville too, because that team is really, really good. They have a lot of talent. They've had a tough non-con as well, and I know they have 3 losses, but they're all really good losses, and I really think that's a team that, first of all, just played incredibly well. Their best game of the season, I think. And I also they're a team that I think is going to get it together by the conference play, I think they're going to be a very, very formidable. And, I'm an AP voter, for those that don't know. I actually have Louisville at 25, but after watching that, I was like, I think Louisville's moving up my rankings because they really, really impressed me. The other thing I think that stood out in a positive light was Medina Okode. She had 23 and 13 in this game, and I just think, Jared, South Carolina's offensive system really runs through the post. It always has. And for her to be a new player on this team and really kind of have this huge responsibility as the focal point, I think it's a tall task when you think of the greats that have come out of this program, but I think she's handling it beautifully, and I think she's playing incredibly well. She's second in Division I in double-doubles or something like that right now. Almost every game she's had a double-double. I think that she has transitioned to this program almost seamlessly, and she's only going to get better.
Yeah, I expected some kind of road bumps.
Yeah, I don't think there's been any really.
Yeah, because just transitioning to any program, usually you have some bumps in the road. But like you said, I mean, she has fit the system as well as I guess everyone wanted her to, as well as she's been expected to, dropping double-doubles consistently. And I expected the rebounding aspect we've seen from her. Her defense in the post has been up to par, but really the way she's been able to score, I wasn't sure if she'd be putting up the numbers that she's been putting up throughout multiple games, and she's doing it. So that's been I think a surprise to not so much a surprise, but it's been better than I expected, especially this early.
Absolutely. And we're a month into the season, and this is a team that is still building chemistry. As Raven Johnson said after that game, she's the only returning starter from last year, and I think sometimes we forget that because we just expect South Carolina to always just kind of recharge and just pick up where they left off from the season before. I should say though, of course we're a month in, there's always going to be things that teams have to work on. And Jared, the most glaring difference, I think, with this South Carolina team right now compared to teams of the past, right now, in this moment, in early December, is the defense. Because when you think of kind of the cornerstones of South Carolina women's basketball, defense and elite rebounding are kind of things that define them, because those are always things that, if the offense is not always going to work for any team. And those are the two things that you can really lock in on and control, when things aren't working on the offensive end. But I don't think the defense is really close to where it has been in years past right now. And again, I think a lot of that has to do with so many new pieces, so many new players that are just trying to figure out chemistry together, because a lot of the things that are not working are just miscommunication and standing around. You can see them kind of being like, you there, I'm here. They're trying to figure it out. So the defense still has a long way to go. I think they're going to figure it out a couple of months from now. I think this team is going to look very, very different. But right now, the defense is the thing that I think is the thing that they have to clean up the most, because I was watching Louisville and they just had so many easy buckets that I'm like, they shouldn't be getting that easy of shots off consistently through the whole game. So I was impressed that South Carolina was able to go toe-to-toe with them, because Louisville was just shooting the lights off out of that arena. And South Carolina was able to hold serve, as Dawn Staley says. But the defense, I think, is going to have to get a lot better, especially when SEC play comes. And those other conference opponents are also going to have elite defense, because that is what this conference is known for. So that's the only thing that I'm kind of looking at as, okay, that has to get better in the next couple of months. I think it will, but as of right now, that's where I think they're at.
Yeah, and ironically, in today's game against NC Central, a game that they did win by 60, early on, not so much the defense as a whole, but the defensive rebounding, I felt like it's been a struggle, not just today, but we've seen that kind of repeat itself. Like you said, the elite rebounding. They don't rebound. On offense, they rebound decently. I think they rebound about as good as you'd expect on offense. But on defense, sometimes I'm just watching it, I'm like, today they came out with the double center lineup with Medina Okode and Adele Tapp and Joyce Edwards out there, and they weren't. I just thought naturally you dominate the rebounding game there, and it wasn't like they were losing long rebounds that bounce out far. It was rebounds within the arc, and that's just something you have to clean up, because once you get to the tournament and the teams you in the SEC tournament and the NCAA tournament, the teams get better. You don't want to give those teams second and third chances.
Absolutely. And I think, again, the great South Carolina teams of the years past do not lose the rebounding battle. And I think losing the rebounding battle to a team like Texas, who is also very elite defensively, has a lot of tall players, that is one thing. But the rebounding battle, against Louisville, against NC Central, which I don't actually know what the rebounding total was for today, but those games should not be close in my eyes. South Carolina should win the rebounding battle in those matchups. Anything else you want to say? Because I do have something I want to pose to you and the fans, and after we kind of wrap up this Louisville game.
I'm excited, so let's get to it.
So I just, as a person who, again, I'm an AP voter, so I try and I have to watch the sport, all of it, objectively, and all of it unbiased, which is obviously what I do anyway as a journalist, but I try and look at every team the same way, what are they doing well, what are they not doing well, and I get online. And the reaction to South Carolina's wins, close wins and losses, I just wonder, is it different than other teams? Because I watch, Oklahoma beat NC State in overtime. Great game. Big win for Oklahoma. Tough loss for NC State. NC State probably a team that's better than their 5-4 record. Yeah. They're figuring it out as well. I watch UConn play Michigan. Great win for UConn. All the attention is kind of wow, Michigan's legit because they challenged UConn and all that kind of stuff. South Carolina went a close game over Louisville, and the conversation is not, what a great win for South Carolina. Louisville's legit. All of this talk that I see is South Carolina's not going to win a natty. They're not going to get in the Final Four. Not this, they're not good, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, why is that the conversation after this game? First of all, Louisville is great. They're a great team. South Carolina had to go into an arena with 10,000 plus or whatever it was. And I felt like the reaction was very negative because they don't win by 25. They had to beat a really good team in a close fourth quarter game. So instead of the conversation being wow, South Carolina played well in the clutch when they had to, Louisville, that was a great game. The conversation suddenly switches to the first week of April as if we're going to the Final Four tomorrow, and everyone's kind of getting ready for that weekend. And South Carolina just doesn't have it this year. I don't know if that's just me just reading too much online or, just seeing the Gamecock perspective of things. I'm just is South Carolina, is the narrative and the conversation around them in close wins different than other teams? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I kind of wondered how we'd see this conversation throughout the season. And I actually started thinking about it after that UConn-Michigan game because if I'm not mistaken, UConn was up 17. They were up big in that game.
A lot.
They were up big. And Silas Swords torched UConn in that second half. And it was interesting because what I kind of, maybe this is just pessimism, but I expected some kind of conversation of, what's going on with UConn? Why'd they play this so close after having a big game? And there was none of that. There was praise for Michigan and Silas Swords. There was praise for UConn winning a close one. So then when this game against Louisville happened, I kind of expected that conversation, and it was not what we saw.
It was just so negative.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know. Maybe there's some panic with Gamecock fans. Maybe they've also created some enemies online.
I don't know. And again, I don't know if I'm just, reading too much online or just seeing, whatever, but I don't know if that's the answer. I'm just posing that to you, and I'm posing that to you guys watching and listening of just is there a difference, with how things are treated? And I also wonder if it's a difference between the men's and women's game, because I'm also a huge fan of the men's game.
Yeah.
There have been so many good games the past couple of weeks, and all of the conversations great game.
Yeah.
If Duke wins by 6 over another ranked team, it's not wow, Duke's struggling this year. It's man, that was a great basketball game.
Right.
All right, let's go to sleep and we'll, watch more games tomorrow. I don't know. But when the women have close games, I just feel it's the sky is falling. I'm why can't we just say that was a great game in early December between two really good teams? I don't know. I don't know if there's a difference. I don't know if it's just certain things that I happen to be seeing or what. But I just felt the conversation after Louisville was a lot more negative than I think it needed to be. Instead of praising South Carolina for finding a way to win, it just suddenly turned to this team doesn't have it this year. And I'm we're 1 month into the season. Every single top team has shown a flaw at some point in this first month. as they should, by the way. No team is ready to win a natty in early December, so every single team has shown flaws at this point, and I'm just like, again, maybe it's just because we're in Columbia. I don't know, but I'm like, why is South Carolina just like ruthlessly crucified for not winning every game by 45? I don't know. I don't know if that's just because we're in Columbia. I don't know if I'm right. I don't know if I'm wrong. I don't know. I just was thinking about that after this win, and I was like, why is it feel like everyone has just a strange reaction? I don't know. It's just, anyway, I made all my points. You guys know what I'm saying.
You do have a point, though, like, especially in contrast with the men's and women's game. In the men's game, aside from the hot take
there's close games every day.
Yeah, like, you never see someone say in December, oh, this team ranked number 3, there's no way they win a national championship. Like, there's the hot take artist, but aside from that, no, it's just, it's December.
Yeah, like Purdue got wrecked, 2 days ago by Iowa State. I mean, it was a terrible loss for the Purdue guys, but they're going to be in the conversation in March. I don't know. I just think it's a very interesting dynamic, and there's a lot of layers to it all. And I'm just curious what your thoughts were, and I'm curious, if you guys want to leave us some comments about your thoughts. It was just interesting to me when I was reading it. I was like, that was a great basketball game. Why are we not talking about how good that game was? And it's okay to point out, like, South Carolina still has work to do, and they still have things that, the defense wasn't great, and like, wow, Louisville was wide open at the end. It's okay to point out things that are not going well, but I don't think in games like that when they win, it should be, you got to give them props, for winning the basketball game. Anyway, let's move on to today's game, which that was their win over NC Central. Jared, as expected, South Carolina winning this one big time, 106-42. The big concern for me right now, and the good thing for South Carolina, is that they're going into exam week. So they're going to have this whole week to just focus on their academics, hopefully all get healthy, because Agat Makir is in concussion protocol, did not play the past 2 games. Tessa Johnson was out sick today. Medina Okote played 1 half, but she, is feeling a little sick. So for me, Jared, right now, we've talked about the depth concerns earlier on in the season, but for me right now, my biggest concern is health, which kind of plays into the depth of this South Carolina team. Because, Jared, when you think about it, we haven't really seen South Carolina at full strength this year. It has been blow after blow after blow. Chloe Kitts goes out for the season. Then Maddie McDaniel gets suspended, and we're all happy she's back with the team. But then as soon as she comes back, Makir goes into concussion protocol. And then today, Tessa Johnson gets sick. So it's like, man, hopefully over this holiday season, South Carolina can get fully healthy, and we can see this 10-man roster at full strength, because it has just felt like every day I feel like I'm getting on and being like, okay, who is out today? Where is everyone good? Like, what's going on? And it just seems like it's been a month of just that happening. So hopefully all the bad juju, hopefully this is the end of it for South Carolina, and all 10 can be healthy going forward. But I think that's my big concern right now, is just the health of the team.
Yeah, especially today when Medina Okote went out. Right before the half.
Stomach's dropping.
Yeah, because I mean, you're not so much worried for this game, but in the back of your head, you're thinking, okay, what if this happens? What if you're in, for example, the SEC tournament, and you have a game like this, and it's a 5-point game, and Okote goes out, and you have 7 people available going into a whole half of play? That's kind of a scary thought to think about. So it is a concern, but the saving grace, at least for right now, is that 2 of them are sick and concussion protocol. They're all things that should not be long term.
Hopefully they'll be back by next Sunday. But South Carolina winning today by 64. Is that the math? 106 minus 42.
Yeah, sounds
60,
right.
64. But Jared, let's talk positivity, because when you win by 64, I thought Latson getting her new Gamecock high, 32 points, was great. And I thought Isla McDowell was great. What stood out to you? Because you were at this game.
Yeah, for sure. Latson's 32 to me. I didn't even realize she had 32. It was kind of a sneaky 32.
Yeah.
Like, she just...
Most in the second half.
Yeah, compiled it, and I was like, oh, snap. She has 32. But Isla McDowell, I mean, she has such a pure jumper. Like, when I tell you, like, she's not just a good shooter, but it is like, there's those shooters that their shot is just so smooth. Like, she's a joy to watch shoot. And I think today she really looked comfortable. Like, she was looking at the basket first, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I know Dawn Staley had mentioned that she felt kind of uncomfortable against Texas, but I think today she looked like she was in her comfort zone with this team, and that's something I can see being replicated in the future, where if she's hot, she may take that contested shot in a close game because she's confident in her shot and she can shoot. And I think that's kind of what I'd want to see from her more in the future. Like, hey, you can shoot. Everyone knows you can shoot. Take that shot.
Especially against the other top-ranked teams. I think that's where maybe the adjustment is we're seeing that affected a little bit more is in those big-time games. So I think Latson, as she continues to get more comfortable, can, hopefully really be the one to just like call her own number, kind of like what Raven did, the other night. So, well, we'll see. But anything else you want to say about this win? A pretty comfortable day at the office at the CLA.
Yeah, I'd love to see. One thing I noticed today that I wonder if we'll see it in the future. Maddie McDaniel off the bench. The Gamecocks didn't have the most beautiful start, but I loved how Maddie, she comes off the bench and goes to the line twice, knocks down 4 free throws. And I wonder how that's going to look in the future because, when in doubt, get to the line. And I think early on in this season, a lot of McDaniel's points have come from the stripe, and she's really managed to get herself to the line well. So I wonder if that's something we may see in the future. Look out for that. Like, hey, if they're struggling, Maddie, get in there and get to the line.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, good to see Maddie back. And I think she's come back again seamlessly as well. I think she, has done a great job, and she adds so much to the South Carolina team. But here's what Don Staley had to say after this win over NC Central as the women now enter their exam week.
I mean, again, we're still trying to find our identity, and I think a lot of times we are. I probably said we got our own little islands, and we got to make a continent. That's kind of what we got to be able to play together. I thought Joyce was the example of it. I thought she kicked it out, got T started with some kick-out threes, all right? And then it seemed like everybody started to just play for each other rather than self. And it's not. I don't think we have a selfish group. That's the thing. We don't have a selfish group. They're just wired differently in that they like to call their own number. And sometimes that's not the correct thing to do. It's playing together. Once we play together, everybody will be able to have some fun out there and score. And I'm glad that they got a feeling of what that is, because, that's what we're used to.
So the women, again, they have exams this coming week, as do all of South Carolina students. They are back in action next Sunday, a week from now, against Penn State, which will be fun. I don't know last time those two programs played, so it'll be fun to see Penn State come to town. All right, Jared, let's transition and talk about the South Carolina men's basketball team. A big week for them. A tough week for them. We'll start. They lost in overtime to Virginia Tech, and then yesterday they got a comfortable win over Stetson. But let's talk about the loss to Virginia Tech, because this was tough. This was a tough one to watch. South Carolina has lost 3 games this season in this non-con. All 3 have been super competitive, and South Carolina just cannot come through in the clutch. And I know that it's been a few days, but Jared, when it's a tie game and you have 17 seconds left on the clock and you don't get a shot off, that's inexcusable. I don't care. I don't know if it's a coaching thing, if it was just Michi. He said he wasn't aware of the time, which is also unacceptable. You have to get a shot off there. I mean, you have to. And then overtime, Virginia Tech was the better team, and South Carolina just continues to struggle to close. But I was watching that, and I think everybody was like, what are they doing? Wasting all that time. I mean, what was your reaction to that loss? Because I was like, how do you not get a shot off there? And you don't need a deep 3. You just need 2.
Right. I mean, I have the same exact reaction. Obviously, you can go into overtime and say, well, they still had a chance to win in overtime. And who knows? Maybe they miss at the end and they still go to overtime and they still lose. Maybe. We don't know that. But just anything, even just a drive, a heave it
Get to
up
the foul
there,
line, something.
Try to draw contact. It's unacceptable, like you said. And, we look at this South Carolina team and you could say, well, yeah, they've had 3 close losses. But when you look at the execution in the late game scenarios like that, this was their same issue last year. They had multiple close losses to good teams last year. And you look at that and I kind of think, why would I feel any differently about this team when that's what the execution looks like late game?
Yeah, and I was going to bring that up as well, because this is now becoming a pattern with the Gamecock men's team. Last year, they were 2-16 in the SEC, but how many of those games did they lose like this,
Yeah.
you know, and now this year we're seeing it again. They've already lost a few kind of like that as well. So I'm like, what is the issue? Is it a coaching thing? You know, I think, you know, we said it in football, those fourth quarter struggles, that has to come down to coaching. Does this come down to coaching? Like,
Right.
is there a miscommunication about what is supposed to happen at the end of these games? And sometimes it's not always offensively either. Sometimes it's on the defensive end. You know, where's the disconnect in these big moments? Because South Carolina, the past year and a half could look very differently for them if they had just performed better in the last 2 or 3 minutes. So I don't know where that disconnect is for them, but it is becoming a pattern. And now it's getting to the point where when things get tight, we're sitting there like, I'm not going to bet on South Carolina. And then do they feel that as players of, we're in a tight situation again? We haven't really won a lot of these. Is it going to become a mind game, you know,
Right.
within the Gamecock roster and stuff? So it was tough to watch, and it was a missed opportunity against one of their best non-conference opponents for a resume win.
Yes.
So it was disappointing. It was disappointing to watch.
Yeah, and now at this point, it also makes me think, because they also had the exhibition against NC State
Yep.
preseason. NC State, that's a good team, but they lost that on a last
buzzer beater
shot.
3.
So it's like, even in exhibitions, I know you don't want to look too deeply into it, but really there's 4 instances now against pretty solid teams where it just makes me doubt this team when it comes to those clutch performances. And, you know, I will say, like, with a veteran like Michi Johnson, I don't think he'll do something like that twice.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a concern. And I think you like to trust your vets and know that when it comes down to it next time, you know, you can rely on him. But we have to see something shift with that late game execution.
Absolutely. And, you know, I know the SEC, I don't feel like is as good maybe this year as it has been the past few, but it's still going to be very good. And South Carolina so it's going to be tough in a couple months, you know, in a month, and, you know, for 3 straight months, it's going to be tough for them. Their non-conference schedule is not great. And this was one of the chances to get a great win on their resume, or a good win, you know, just some kind of significant W on the resume. And now when you look at it, it's really Clemson is kind of the only one that's left for them to, in this non-conference portion, to get a big win, because they've lost the 3 that have really kind of meant more. So we'll see how Lamont Paris and his team adjust in the coming weeks. But they did come back yesterday and beat Stetson pretty easily. So it was nice to see that they didn't have that slump post-overtime loss. So I was happy about that, to see that from South Carolina. But Jared, what did you notice in this one? Because this one was pretty straightforward for the Gamecocks, which, if you're Lamont Paris, that's what you want to see your team. That's how you want to see them rebound.
Yeah, I mean, that was a great rebound game, not just from the team, but we talk about Michi Johnson, 17 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. He was perfect shooting yesterday. And I thought that was a great way for a vet to rebound. And it wasn't an easy perfect. Like, if you look at some of those threes, like contested threes from distance, Michi was balling. And I don't know if he had some kind of, you know, extra motivation. Like, okay, I messed up last game, I got to get this one. But he looked motivated, and he played the lights out. So it was great. Because in a situation like that, if he misses the shot, whatever, but it's hard to watch a guy feel so dejected after messing up like that.
He was.
Like, I don't root for that for any team. Like, I'm a Dolphins fan. I hate the Patriots. I don't root for the Patriots players to be in a situation like that where they just feel like everything is their fault. You never want to see a guy like that. So it was nice to see Michi happy and balling out after that.
Yeah, I know. And that's kind of what you want to see from a veteran. And so much, Michi kind of wears his emotions on his sleeve. And so for him to kind of, you know, regroup and rebound and take charge once again, he didn't let that affect him. That does show leadership. And, you know, Michi, you know, he'll be the first to admit, I think, that he's going to learn from his mistakes and try not to do them again. But South Carolina beating Stetson yesterday. Here's what Lamont Paris had to say after South Carolina's win as they get ready for their exam week as well.
Being growth-minded and being focused on improvement, and I thought this was there were some specific areas that I thought we did that. We spent a couple days after the Virginia Tech game addressing a couple of things that I really thought that we needed to address, and you know, there was some growth. It wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but but there was definitely some growth, particularly on the defensive side of the ball and in our ball screen coverage responsibilities. I'd say that probably that was the number one thing that we were really focusing on, and I thought we did a much better job in this game at that. And we made some shots too, so that always is good. But anytime you hold a college basketball team to those low numbers in terms of field goal percentages and ultimately 51 points, you're going to give yourself a great chance to have success.
So an eventful week for South Carolina basketball, the women getting that thriller win over Louisville, then the guys, losing a thriller to Virginia Tech, and then both cruising this weekend. They now enter exam week, so they have some time to relax, focus on their studies, and hopefully, especially for the women, to get healthy. But again, the women are back in action on Sunday against Penn State, that game at Colonial Life Arena. And then the guys, their next game actually isn't until Tuesday the 16th. And Jared, it is the rivalry game. And that one is at Clemson this year. So they will be at Little John Coliseum for that one. Clemson has a couple losses, but they've been good losses. They just lost to Alabama at Alabama in a really close game in their ACC-SEC challenge. So I think going off of what we've seen so far, you'd have to give Clemson the honor of the favorite in that one. But we have seen crazy things happen. We talk about the football, baseball, all that. This men's basketball rivalry, these two teams, they go at it some years. And South Carolina has beaten Clemson when people didn't think they had a chance. Clemson has won games that when people didn't think they had a chance. So this is one that I truly don't know what's going to happen in this game, because they have put on some shows in years past, including last year. So I think Clemson's the favorite, but everything's on the table. Put it all on the table, because that's anyone's game.
I mean, look, last year was my first that was my first ever Carolina Clemson rivalry game, period.
That was like your first week.
Right? Yeah. So I mean, that was insane. I love that. That was crazy. I mean,
you were like, is this going to happen every day that I'm here?
Right? I'm like, what is going on with these two teams? Do they just always go at, and for the most part in pretty much every sport, they really do go at it.
Yeah.
So I guess you really never know what you're going to get with this rivalry. So I can't wait for my second time seeing these two guys go at it.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. That game, again, on Tuesday, December 16th at Clemson. But an eventful basketball week, and basketball season is in full swing. That's all for today, though, everybody. As always, make sure you like and subscribe and follow us on YouTube or wherever you listen to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, or Amazon Music. We'll be back with a new episode on Thursday. He's Jared Parker. I'm Matt Dowell. Thanks for watching and listening. We'll see you next time here on The Sideline.